This week on thERINpy, it's entrepreneur, seven-figure CEO, Kacia Ghetmiri. She's the host of the Empower Her podcast, which currently has over 10 million downloads. She's a life enthusiast obsessed with helping women create a life they love. I am obsessed with her podcast. She's real. She's vulnerable. She says the things. She and her husband do real estate investing. They have a podcast together. As I mentioned, she has a podcast. They're flipping houses. They have a 5-month-old son. She is balancing all the things, and she does it with such energy. Please do me a favor and hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode. And if there's something in this episode that resonates with you, please share it on social media, send it to a friend, tag me, or maybe even take 2 seconds to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. And now your weekly dose of thERINpy with Kacia Ghetmiri.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm so excited to meet you.
It's insane. Like, do you know how many people are like, you haven't met, like you guys, your energy. And I'm like, I know. And I was in Denver and then I had to fly out and it was her event. And it's insane that we're just meeting.
Yeah. Well, I'm Kacia. It's nice to meet you.
Very nice to have you here. What I wanted this to be was just you sharing all the gems that I've gotten from you on your podcast, on Instagram, going through all the ones that have really hit with me. And then your ass decides to drop an epic episode of Empower Her just 8 hours ago. That is exactly what I'm dealing with right now, where I'm at in my life. I just inhaled it. And now I feel like I want the last half of this episode to be that. And like how aligned and ordained. If we were doing this yesterday, it wouldn't have been a topic. So it's insane. It's exactly where I'm at with balancing, and we're going to get there, but like balancing your ambition with being like a locked in mother. It's hard. It's like where I'm at. So we're going to get into it. Again, I've got like 4 or 5 gems that have just hit for me that I want you to share with my audience. But I wanted to start with Kacia coming up. Were you always entrepreneurial? Were you always high energy?
Always high energy, always 800 million ideas, squirrely brain. I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur, but because we become a byproduct of the expectations of our peer group, I didn't really know what I would do as an entrepreneur. So I did the thing that I thought that I was supposed to do and went to college and started climbing the corporate ladder. But like when I think back to my childhood, like I was slaying huckleberry jam on the street corner. I would get in trouble for selling bracelets in school. I've always like wanted to make my own money. And even part of it was like growing up, my friend group, like we were totally fine financially, but my parents got divorced when I was 3. And like a lot of my friends, their families had more money than we did. So I was just wanting to like earn my own and just like, I'll do the side thing. Like I'll work before school. And yeah, so I've always just been this like passionate, excited person, but it's been a challenge to direct it in the right way and honor my own intuition, because I pivot and change my mind so damn much, which I'm sure some people listening in can relate to that.
I want to get into the pivot. And it also leads to one of your gems. Expertise has a shelf life.
Yeah. So I started my career in IT, literally in like recruiting in software engineers. And then I moved more into like a project management space. And I felt like I couldn't like fit my personality into this realm. Like I was like trying to shove all my personality into a pencil skirt, and it just like didn't feel like it worked, because I'm really, as you know, like all over the place in a good way. I love that part about me. But I always intuitively just like felt like something was off. But it made sense on paper. Like I was not the person who had like the shitty bosses or anything like that. I made great money. I had great career trajectory. The last corporate job I worked at was at Google. So I just always had this like internal knowing that I wanted something that was more aligned, not necessarily more, because I don't believe being an entrepreneur is more than working in the corporate world. It's like, what's actually going to light you up? And so because I didn't know what the jump would be, and my now husband, then boyfriend, was applying to dental school at the time when I was back in the corporate world. So I started this network marketing business on the side. And part of the reason was like, I thought it would be just another stream of fulfillment in my life where I could figure out how to be more Kacia. At the time I was 24 years old. And I was like, gosh, the person that I am at work is not the person that I feel like I actually am. And this, living these multiple lives, like it just doesn't feel like it's fitting. And it really is just giving me a lot of discomfort, which would leave me ugly crying on the bathroom floor where my snot and mascara would, get together in my mouth and I would choke on my spit because I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy with what I have? Because
Yes.
again, it made sense.
Yes. It
So
made
network
sense because you're
marketing
making
was
money too. Like it's like financially it made sense, but you're not lit up like something. It's just like that feeling.
yeah. And when everybody else around you is like, well, Kacia, like, this is just what you do. We climb the corporate ladder and like we do all
Yeah.
the fun stuff on the weekends. Like, I felt like there was something wrong with me, but it was just I was in the wrong lane. And as soon as I started to like get a taste, which is what network marketing, building that on the side did for me back when
Yeah.
I was working at Google, I was like, oh, I can create something of my own. Like, what could my take on this be? And the company that I worked with, there was a lot of like stay-at-home moms that were obsessed with nutrition and fitness. And that was not me at all. Like, I was a corporate girl and I was like, I'm climbing the corporate ladder and I love happy hours. And I'm like, what if I could just like have this team that I developed be people that wanted to earn side income and they wanted to be like connected. It wasn't this whole like, quit your job, you're super passionate about fitness. So like I kind of carved my own lane, which that business ended up taking off and it was growing by like 100 grand a year while my now husband was in dental school. So I was able to provide for us
Yeah.
financially while he provided for us emotionally because, when you're an entrepreneur, like shit is wild.
Yes.
And so then after he graduated from NYU dental school, we moved to San Diego and I was like, okay, now's the time where I'm going to figure out what else I really want to do. And I didn't know what that was. So I started my podcast, Empower Her, at the end of 2018. And the intention was to create what I wish existed. Because at the
Yes.
time, I didn't feel like there was enough, like, come with me, let's figure out life together type of podcast, especially hosted by women. It felt as if I could get a lot of perspective and advice from people that were maybe 5 steps ahead of me, but they were giving advice in hindsight. Like, oh, back when I was in that situation in my marriage, in my life, in my business, in my career, here's what I did. And I was like, I really want someone that feels like, I don't know what the F I'm doing right now. Like, so
Yes.
I just would bring people on the podcast and have these really transparent conversations. And I think that's why it took off pretty quickly because I think people were really craving that at that time too, of like someone who didn't pretend like their ish was all together, but instead was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So let me find someone who maybe knows what they're doing and we'll just talk about it. And that grew and evolved. A whole new business.
It's so like, it's just exactly like what I did. Well, I started as a podcast. It was Squats and Margaritas. And it was the girl you were talking about before, the stay-at-home mom that loves fitness. And I was like, Squats and Margaritas, balance, you work out together. And it literally changed my life. And my first book was called Squats and Margaritas. And I stand by it because living life with balance after all the obsession and restriction, it did change my life. But I was booking like bigger guests and it was starting to grow, not 10 million downloads like Empower Her, but it was growing, but it was like the kind of thing, it didn't feel aligned anymore. One, I got sober curious because in the pandemic, I was a lot more margaritas than squats. And I found myself like pouring cocktails earlier in the day, every day. And I was regrettably that drunk mom on TikTok, like, it's a pandemic. This is what we do. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old. So it didn't feel right anymore. It didn't feel aligned. And then I was like, when's the last time I even talked about fitness? My show is straight therapy every single week. And I will be vulnerable and I will go there on relationships and body image and everything you talk about in therapy and bring someone on that's just as authentic and raw. And I just rebranded. Obviously, I don't have any letters, so it's not therapy, but thERINpy became what was aligned for me and sharing these conversations so that others feel seen and less alone. And it's very much like Empower Her. It's come along with me. We'll figure it out together. Not look at me and how I did this. It's very similar. And women do crave that. And that's where you find exactly what you were supposed to do. Like, you're lit up. I'm lit up. It took us a while to kind of end up here. And I would never have thought in my body image days that I would be hosting a platform that inspires other women. But it's like, you also have to look at it as like, you went through that to come out on the other side and help the next woman out of it and be like, I totally get it. Like, it's a wounded healer. She's been through all the body image stuff. I want to talk to her, even though she doesn't have the letters next to her name.
Well, and it's also like, I feel like people listening in, it's like, this can be kind of this subtle nudge that if something's not being represented the way you wish it would, and it's bugging you, often that's because you're supposed to be the representation. And honestly, that's one of the things with Empower Her where I was like, gosh, I'm craving this connection because I don't know if like all these people just have this figured out. And I'm just over here like, man, what am I doing with my life? Ugly cry, what's wrong with me? But it's like, oh, no, a lot of people feel that way. And I think it's hard enough being a human sometimes. Why are we pretending to have it all together all the time? Because that's just like so much more work when instead you could just be real and
Yes.
honest. And spoiler alert, people
Because
connect with it more anyway.
we feel like we have to, if someone's going to like download our podcast, we have to be an expert. We have to have like knowledge in these things, but that is why people connect with yours, Kacia. You're just real and vulnerable. And I have to say, like some other podcasts, it's like, you can tell they're just saying the words, like they're saying the buzzwords. And I'm just like, it's just not authentic. And you can tell. And that is why you have 10 million downloads. It's like, you are just yourself. You share all the things and you bring people along with you. And I feel seen every time I listen to your show. I'm so passionate about moms finding their passion, their purpose. And a life coach was on and she's like, what's that conversation that you overhear? And you're like, I got to get in there. And it was like, for me, if I hear a mom, like, well, I'm just a mom. So I'm like, no, you're not just a mom. Like you matter too. And like, I can't sit down. So it's like the thing that lights you up like that. And you have to look at what you're doing now, like what you were doing in network marketing, it's making money, but you say, are you still excited about it? Like, do you want to go to work every day? You have to look at that.
Yeah, if you're not, then you have to make a change and you have to not make it mean something that like it failed. It's like, I'm so grateful for that chapter that ended in 2019. I'm so grateful for that, but that's not me anymore. Like there's a different version that's evolved. And honestly, sitting here with you, Erin, with, I have a 5-month-old son. I'm a first-time mom, 5-month-old son. So the conversation that if I heard is about like the new mom transition of like, who the F am I now? Because I was this person who approached business and life this way. And now my desires changed and not everyone's going to connect with that, but I'm not supposed to be for everyone. I'm supposed to be for the people that I can really hit home with. And to be fully transparent, that's been a big adjustment with Empower Her, even reaching such a large audience. It scales from 21-year-old people with a side hustle to 58-year-old like empty nesters. When I've done these big events, I've like looked out to the audience. I'm like, it's so cool that it's such a broad audience, but to be real with you, transitioning into new mom life, I'm like, I love talking about motherhood now, but that's not what my podcast was about. Like, I love talking about business, but not everyone that listens into my podcast is business owners. But I'm like, those are two things that are so freaking important to me that I get lit up, that I want to get in that conversation with. That I'm like, I just even like, I have to just be honest. I need to crank it up, and I'm continuing to crank it up 800 notches on like who I am now. Cause this version of me with a 5-month-old is so different than me 6 months ago. So in ways I could have never imagined,
Totally. But it all falls under Empower Her, like that umbrella of empowering people through talking about motherhood, talking about career, talking about like all those things fall. You have a great umbrella that can cover all of those topics. And you're right. It's like you have that thing, like this isn't going to get as many downloads because not as many people are going to relate. It's not for them. You have to, it's for the person that needs to hear that message. And when I tell you the episode you dropped today is like, and to be fully transparent, I'm almost divorced. I don't know what I want to do with it, to be honest. Again, there's lots of transparency. We haven't signed, and I'm like looking into that. Like, why haven't I signed? And asking for clarity. And it is exactly what your podcast was about today with Lindsay Roselle about balancing that. It doesn't fit together, being ambitious and being a devoted mother. And my situation, I didn't see this coming. To be honest, I didn't have a lot of self-worth for about 15 years. And I saw nothing else for myself, nothing else. I don't want to say like being a mom is the most important job in the world. I do want to be a mom, but I didn't see anything past that. And when I wrote my first book and I shared my story, it was almost like I talked about my bulimia, my anorexia, stuff I was going to my grave with all of that, Kacia. I put it out and it was just like, it was off. And everything opened up. A radio station gave me this show. I made a nonprofit for teen girls struggling with body image and self-worth. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And my husband was like, oh, what you said you want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I did. To be fair, I did say that, but I am lit up by this. And it's kind of at the cost of my marriage. And she talks about that. Lindsay, you guys are talking about like resenting the other person and wanting to step into this, but then the guilt that comes with that. Anytime I go to speak, I'm like, I should be with my kids and they're only going to be little now. Like, can we get into this?
It's interesting because I'm in this new season, right? Where it's like, it's so fresh for me that I don't have our son is not like looking at me like, Mom, come do X, Y, Z. Like he can't even talk it, right? He literally just had solid foods yesterday. Like we're in that season, right?
Aw.
So which is so exciting, but it's also like, it's really this opportunity that like we have to remind ourselves that as humans, we're constantly going to be evolving, and we have to make the decision on like, what are we willing to have come with us and what's not coming with us, and who are the people that we're surrounding ourselves with that are going to normalize the fact that you are supposed to change. You're not trying
Yes.
to be the same at every different stage with motherhood. It's like, I have no idea what the hell it's like to have a 2-year-old because I don't have a 2-year-old. But I can tell you that I feel drastically different, coming 5 months postpartum than I did when I was like in the thick of like no sleep at all at the very beginning. And it's like, I can anticipate that I don't know the person that I'm going to become 1 year from now. And to be honest, it's actually making me think like, I'm not making plans 1 year from now for what I want to do because I'm like, I don't know what that version of me wants yet. And I want to create this space, which is why I'm so passionate about entrepreneurship, because it's like we're in control of what it is that we want to create and the problems that we want to solve for our community and the products, programs, services, offers that we want to create. And I'm honoring the fact that everything feels so new to me right now that I'm like unpacking all these new versions of me and all of the stuff that comes up with that. Right.
Yes.
Now, as I become a parent, my relationship with my own parents has changed drastically. My marriage looks different. We've been together for 15 years before having kids, and like, it's this new evolution and all of it. It's all
Yeah.
so new, but it's also like, God, I'm so grateful because it's making me a better person. And I thought that I was going to be the same, but like with a baby. I don't
Yeah.
know why the hell I thought, like, I'm just going to be the same person, but I'm just going to do this with this cute little sidekick. And it's like, to
Yeah.
be honest, I'm so good at saying no now. I used to not be that great at saying no because I'm like, oh, well, I should just do this thing. And it wasn't necessarily like a people pleasing thing, but more so like, I've got the time, I could add value here. Let me just do it. It's the right thing to do. But now I'm like, hey, sorry, I can't do this because everything that I'm doing, it's like I'm trading that time to do this thing with time that I could be with our little family, right? And it's like
Yes.
finding where that balance is in this season. And for me, like I've got a good flow with it right now, but it might change 3 months from now, you know?
And you're capable of doing it. So you just do it because you're in, and you got into that too. It's like, just because you're capable doesn't mean you have to do all of it. And I validate myself by all the things that I check off during the day. So
Yeah.
I was listening to that episode too. And it's like all Sarah Blakely, all the people that have these businesses and have kids, like they're not doing it by themselves. And I
Right.
feel like I have to, because I said I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I have this, so nothing can drop. And if I ask for help, then it's like you can't do it anyway. Like I have to make everything work, and it has to all be seamless because I said I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. But like you said, you're supposed to evolve. And I guess it's just like clear as I'm saying it. Like if your partner is not seeing the evolution as positive or on board, like with you, then resentment. And I just like, we've gotten to a point, and it's because of what you talked about on your show today, that I have this pull. And it's not even just like, I love being on a stage and hyping up women. Like I love that pool, but it's like, I want to leave something. Like I wrote a children's book, and my nonprofit, once I'm gone, I want to leave something that, like you said, I wish existed when I needed it. And I have this
Yeah.
strong desire to do that, not more than being a mom, but it's like almost like being seen as, I want to do this instead of being a mom. And so that's in my head. And I'm like, they're only going to be little right now. And there are different seasons where, like you talked about this too, that's like, you have your season where you're CEO, season where you're more mom, and it goes back and forth, but they're only little in one season. So it's so hard for
Yeah.
me to be like, and when you're saying like, I don't really know about a kid being like, Mama, come to this, you're going to miss like milestones. Like, do you think like, you're like, what if he walks like in a few months and you're not
Right.
there? Like, how do you, I have so much guilt about it.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, of course, this is just from my current perspective, but I think about how, my husband and I talk about this often. So, my husband used to be a dentist, and now we do a lot together in the real estate space.
Mhm.
So we have this flexibility in our life that we've created where we get to do things as a family unit so often, that I'm so grateful for. And what was weird is like, we have a fix and flip business too. And we closed
Mhm.
on 2 properties in the last week. We brought our little son, Brody, to the closing table with us. And obviously he has no idea what's going on, but we sat him at the end of the table, like where the notary is, where we're signing. And I took a cute picture of him and I was thinking in my head, he's going to see a mom, and in our case, a mom and a dad, who are both lit up about what they're doing, that he's going to think that's normal. He's going to
Yes.
see, like he's going to see his mom so excited about the work that she does in the world and so excited to be a mom. He needs, in my opinion, I want him to see both. I want him to see me be there and be present for him, but I also want him to see me get pulled in another direction to go do something and then come back, because I care about the holistic version of Kacia, not just mom version of Kacia. So like, again, it's the stage that I don't have a baby that's talking back to me right now, but I feel this like pull where I'm genuinely excited that I'm sitting right down, like I'm in my office downstairs, and upstairs is our nanny with our son. And I feel great about that. I feel great
Yes.
about paying her to be there with him. I feel great about the fact that he is getting to connect with someone else right now. I feel great that I'm doing work that matters, that we're having this conversation and I'm present where my feet are. And like, I think I've just had to find, and I think what I'm going to continuously have to find is like, what are the containers that I'm like, I'm working less than I worked before,
Yes.
when I was a mom, but I'm so much more intentional about the time that I'm like, that's the decision that I need to make. So I don't feel guilt about the fact that I am both. I know I'm a really good freaking mom. And I also know that I really have important work that I want to do. And if I don't honor both, I don't feel whole. And I care about him seeing me as a whole person. So I need all of these components. Like I want girlfriends and I want to have a great marriage. And like, there's so many different things that I want to feel healthy. And I want to feel like, I don't feel bad leaving my son to go to a workout. Like I don't need to be with him 24 hours a day, because I also think there's a lot of benefits of him getting to learn and be around other people too. Right. So it's like, I guess I just look at it more holistically, where in this current season, like I don't feel guilt because I've found what works for me right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
currently I don't really work at all on Fridays. And that works for me, right? Where I'm super present. And it's like we get to, like, the life that we're creating requires us to do some things to have this optionality, but like I'll be at every school play. Like,
I
I'll
need
make it work because I
I,
can.
I need some of that. And it's like I am just connecting everything you're saying. I feel the same way. It's coming from
Yeah.
somewhere else. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling guilt and shame because my daughter's 8 and I want her to see me
Yeah.
lit up and I want her to have something she's passionate about. And if I wasn't doing this,
Yeah.
I would have resentment of just feeling like I have this pull and not doing it. Be like, okay, fine. I'll just be a stay-at-home mom. That's not going to work because I'm going to be like, resentful at him.
Yeah.
And then she's not going to have a happy mom. And like you said, you go to work out, you come back, you're a better mom. So I need to just drop that
Yeah.
guilt. And I want her to step into her exceptional. I have to share this with you. I had a spiritual life coach on, and she was like, we all operate in 3 realms, the excellent, and the exceptional. The is like, I don't really math, accounting.
Yeah.
That's not like my
Yeah.
jam. The excellent
Me
is like
too.
what you went to school for. So like for you, you said you went, whatever you studied, or for your husband, being a dentist, he's
Yeah.
excellent at
Yeah.
it. He's trained in it. That's his mode of excellence. But there's another level, and that's your exceptional. And that is what only you can do. And she's like, so many people
Yeah.
just stay in the excellent because that's what I went to school for, or you feel comfortable. And the exceptional is like, yeah, maybe you are an accountant, but maybe you're also the person that everybody comes to with their problems. And like, maybe you should look into that because that's something only you can do. And you're not serving anyone if you're not stepping up into the exceptional level. And that is like when I'm on a stage and when like, I feel like in flow, like people will come up and be like, that was so great what you said about this. I'm like, I don't even remember saying that. Like it's truly
Yeah.
like a flow state that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And to go down to like an excellent, something that I'm trained in or something I'm going to do, I'm not lit up and I'm not going to be serving why I am specifically on this planet. And I want her to find her exceptional and not settle for anything less. So it's like living for what I would want for her.
I've always had this like hypothetical, like back even when I started my first business, I've always had this hypothetical conversation with our future kids in my head, which was me telling them they could do anything that they want to do in this world, and them being able to look back at me with as like living, breathing proof. Like, I
Yeah.
know I can, mom. I watched you. Because I think about it, even like my mom went back to school when she was in her 40s, like she had me really young. And I remember just seeing her like do something that she was really excited about. What she did growing up, she wasn't excited about, but she made, she took care of me and she did what she needed to do. But like the embodiment of her being passionate and like living into her potential, like that impacted me so much more than her like being around. Like I really got to see her around and I got to see her do other things. And I just think like it's just a permission slip we have to give to ourselves that like the vision that you have gifted on your heart is in you for a reason. And you're also gifted the resourcefulness, if you're gifted that vision, to figure out how to make it happen. But you have to just trust that like you have the kids that you have for a reason, right? Like, I think that Brody, our son, is supposed to grow up seeing his parents like have a exceptional marriage. Like, I just think that
Yeah.
that's like what he's supposed to see. Some people, they're supposed to see their parents are supposed to split and they're supposed to go be exceptional people as individuals and figure out how to co-parent. And that's the experience that they need to have. Like, we have to just trust in some regard that like we can't have such a tight grip on like it has to go this way, because
Yes.
all of us are going to screw our kids in some way. Like, I'm sure I'm going to do something that's going to screw him up. So like we're all going to be in therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy, right? Obviously. But it's like
Yeah.
too much pressure to think that like you're going to always get it right in every capacity. And I think like I just trust that like if I have this vision that I want Brody to be part of what we're doing and I want to be an entrepreneur and like we want to have this lifestyle that we're creating, like that's because he is supposed to be our child. And that's it. You know,
Yes.
that's the experience he's supposed to have.
Oh my God. Thank you for
Yeah.
that reframe. Maybe they are supposed to see two separated parents that co-parent well together. And if I'm seeing myself, like you're talking, I'm like, yes, 100%. And I don't have that kind of support. And maybe that is like the journey that these children were supposed to see.
Yeah.
And that is what's in the best interest of their souls and why they're on this planet. I've never looked at it that way. Thank you. You kind of touched on this gem that you've shared, but the do less better. We feel like we should be
Yeah.
doing more, especially as entrepreneurs. And the more we do, the better. But I have always held myself to this like unachievably high standard. So I'm never satisfied. And that mindset led
Yeah.
to anorexia, bulimia, depression,
Yeah.
all the things. Now I finally have found a balance. And now I
Yeah.
finally feel like comfortable in my body. You're making it harder than it needs to be. Can you get into do less better?
It's interesting because I think, you know, as humans, we can be our own worst critics. And whenever I'm talking with women, so many of us, when we put our head on our pillow at night, we think of all of the things that we didn't get done. And we're literally digging at our own confidence, right? Because like confidence is built just by keeping those tiny promises to ourselves, like doing the little things that we said that we're going to do. But if we are setting ourselves up every day with this massive to-do list that like Beyonce and her entire team couldn't even do, and we're like, dang it, like I didn't get this done, so now I suck. Confidence, like
Yes.
dig. And like you're the only person that you're going to spend every single second with of every single day for the rest of your life. So you have to be on your own team. Otherwise, you can't make any of the big dreams that you have on your heart come true. So it's interesting because I challenged myself where like I grew up in a little bit of a chaotic environment. My mom was an addict. And it's interesting because and then she got sober and now she's a chemical dependency counselor and we're best friends. Like it ended up
Yeah.
being absolutely incredible. But I grew up with a lot of chaos. And I just got so comfortable thriving in chaos. And then I saw how this chaos was, to be honest, like once I moved into the entrepreneurial space, like this chaos with my high energy, like outgoing, like extrovert nature, those two things together got me massive results. Like I built massive memberships and communities and had like, I mean, like all these things that I built, like it really, to be honest with you, it really did work for me. And I wasn't at this point where I was like burning out all the time. Like I was genuinely really excited. So as you can imagine, going from that state, thinking that that's how I have to operate in business because the chaos felt so familiar to my nervous system, to then having a baby where my desires changed and like what I could do in terms of like my own bandwidth and my energy changed drastically. It was such a mind F for me that I was like, wait a second. If I want to be an entrepreneur, which I know is true to me, to my core, that I want to create things and solve problems in this world for people, like I know that I want to do that. I was like, I literally cannot do it the way that I did it before. That will no longer work for me now. And I have to almost dismantle this belief that in order for me to see success, which my prior track record as an entrepreneur for the last 10 years has shown me, that the way that I saw success was from a very chaotic place that, to be honest, like I said, actually did kind of work and was
Yeah.
pretty fun and exciting for me. That will no longer work for me now because I don't have the bandwidth. Because if I want to be a present mom and I want to be an entrepreneur, it has to be done different. Because this new element to the equation, it's like, it's almost like I had this realization of like, this is a season of new motherhood. And then I was like, wait, I'm going to be a mom for the rest of my freaking life. Right.
Yeah.
And we actually want to have other, like, we want to have another one too. So it's like, it's wild to think I was like, well, I have to dismantle this belief because if I try and operate from chaos, I'm not going to be the type of person that I want to be to myself. Definitely not going to be the type of mom I want to be, not the type of wife or friend, insert any role. So I was like, hold on. What if I challenged myself to say, like, what if I created a smaller container and then I honored staying in that container? And those were the only times that I worked. And one of the first things that I did is because I was such a go-getter on Mondays, I made Mondays, like for the first few weeks postpartum, like when I got back into the swing of things, I made Mondays like mom, quote unquote, mom Mondays, where I didn't work at all on Mondays. And it was such a mind game because I love a 6:30 a.m. workout on a Monday and a big to-do list and crush, 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 crush. And
Yes.
instead I moved so slow. And then I would just get pooped on and puked on. And like, then I would be feeding him and then we'd go for a walk. And I was like, I am not doing anything, quote unquote, productive by prior me's standards. And it
Yes.
shook me up. Like, how do I recalibrate? Why does my nervous system feel so unsafe? And honestly, Erin, all I wanted to do was just like launch stuff. I was like, I just need to create something. I need to launch it onto the world. And what I did is I launched a mastermind from that place. After filling the mastermind, I had to refund $100,000 because I did it too early because I wasn't ready. Like I was like, I don't have the brain capacity to show up for the way that I want to for these women. And I don't feel like I have the desire to actually do this if I'm really honest with myself.
Yeah.
Refunded $100,000, went back to square one. I was like, give myself 4 more weeks and then I can approach this, but I have to really dismantle this belief. So now it's like, I've got these chunks of time when our nanny's here, and that's when I get the bulk of my work done. And anything else is just like sprinkles on top. I don't respond to emails for days. I don't beat myself about not responding to text messages. There are text messages in my phone that I'm like going to get back to and be like, crap, read this, responded in my head, didn't get back to you. Because I just have to give myself grace because I don't want him to grow up with a mom who's constantly beating herself up for not being everything to everyone. John C. Maxwell has a quote that says, success to me is when the people who know me the best love me the most. And as much as I give, like, I care so much about the impacts that I make in the world, but Sally Sue 293 on Instagram is not coming to my funeral. If I died tomorrow, she's impacted for a week. Brody is impacted forever. Right. So it's like, I just care about like the smaller people, and I care about how I feel when I put my head on my pillow every night. So I have to make changes, you know?
Kacia, that quote hit me in the face. The people that are closest to me have problems with me right now. And I'm helping Sally 293, whatever, because I feel pulled to, but she's not coming to my funeral. And that's the thing. Like when you're describing that day and it's like, I would feel like I'm not getting anything done. Like I can't not be productive. I am like hyper efficient to the point, Kacia, if I'm going on a walk, there better be either the dryer running or the dishwasher, something else is efficiently happening. I truly don't think I could take a day like that. Like I would be like, it would physically pain me to not be efficient. But look at my marriage.
Yeah.
Look where that's got.
Yeah.
That's what you say too. How's that working out for you?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, then we have to really unpack, like, where am I making this like so heavy of a weight on my worth as a human? Right. And like, where am I getting, like, is this coming from a place that I believe that me working harder is going to give me this like primal need for safety and security? Or do I think that my worthiness or my ability to be loved is in like how much impact I can make on other people that are essentially strangers?
Yes.
Right. Or like where am I getting my worth, my value, my love, my safety, my security? And I came to realize, like, I was like, well, my ability to make money makes me feel safe and secure, because I didn't always feel safe and secure always, right, growing up. So I'm like, I'm craving that safety. But as I started to realize, I was like, if I have this hyper independence of always wanting to like earn money or whatever that looks like, even though the motive was never like, I want to earn X amount of money, the motive was like, I want to give back.
Safe.
I want to solve problems.
Yeah.
How is that dynamic impacting my marriage? How is that impacting my ability to actually be present where my feet are? And that is such a core belief of mine, is like, I really want to just be present, because I have no idea what my son is doing upstairs with the nanny right now. Because I'm in this conversation with you, Erin, and hopefully adding value to your community, right? Because I'm just here sitting in my office. I'm not worried about the fact that, and like when I start opening tabs, I'm like, oh, I wonder when my Sweet Green order is going to get delivered. And like, oh, I'm going right now. Like, where's my dog? Like, if I start opening, I can do that. But what I'm actually, the conscious practice that I'm creating right now in this season is like close tabs. Like, put your feet on the ground and say, like, where am I now? And how can I soak up this moment? Because I just want to do, back to your original question, I want to do less, but I want to do it way better, because I know when I'm giving half-ass energy versus full-ass energy. Like right now, this is full-ass, I'm here. But
thank you.
You might not even be able to notice half-ass, but I would know it. And I'm the person that I spend every single day. So like, I want to feel like I'm doing a good job at the things that matter, but that's not quantity of time now. That's quality of time. you know, it looks
Totally.
different.
And I
Yeah.
know my reason for the validation as well, when you were saying like making money because it makes you feel safe and secure. I'm in a different position because my husband played in the NFL for 9 years. He's retired. Money is not, I'm not financially motivated, but I was a soccer
Yeah.
player my whole life. And in college, like I played D1 soccer in college and it didn't work out. Like my career was not
Yeah.
good. It like didn't work out how I thought. I realized that my whole life, my identity and my self-worth and my value was soccer. Like I was a soccer player. When that was gone, I didn't,
Yeah.
what was my value now? So it's like, I know that I want this, what I'm doing now, my show, the nonprofit, my books, like everything to be so valuable because soccer wasn't. Like I've come to the point where like this won't fail because I was a failure in soccer. So this has value. And so I'm driven and I'm like pushing and pushing all the time. But like back to what you just said, like who is benefiting from that if like my marriage is falling apart and I'm not present with my kids because I can't shut it off. I have 100 tabs open in my mind every single minute. And I can't, like you said, I would stay in the same hours and I would only work in these hours. Absolutely not. Like I don't know how to shut it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's like forcing a container and then literally just like the discipline of that. Because the thing is like you have discipline, otherwise you wouldn't have be in the health state that you're in right now. You wouldn't have ever been a D1 athlete. Like you wouldn't be able to put out a podcast every week. You have the discipline to do what you need to do. It's just like reprioritizing in your head. Like what are the feelings? Because like you are gaining something from the pattern that you have right now, right? Even if you feel like your marriage is not where you want it to be or the presence that you feel or whatever that is, you're getting something from this. Otherwise, you wouldn't continue doing it, right? You're getting
Yeah.
something positive from it. So it's almost asking yourself, like, what am I getting from this? And when I ask myself, what am I getting from this like state of needing for it to feel chaotic? Well, I'm getting this safety. Like I'm getting the security that it's like,
Yeah.
well, no one can hurt me and no one can like I'll be okay because I have myself. What would that do to my marriage if I kept that type of like hyper independence? And it wasn't like a huge problem in our marriage, but there's been seasons where, especially me making more income and providing for us financially when my husband was in dental school and like all the dynamic shifts that we've had. And now it looks a little different with everything we're doing together in real estate and what he's spearheading. So it looks different now, but I'm like, how would that have manifested later if I didn't stop and say, like, what am I gaining from this? Oh, I'm getting this feeling of like, ooh, I've got this hyper independence. So like, I've got this confidence in myself. Do I really want to just say like, only I can do it? Do I really want to have this like feeling of like, well, I know I can always count on me? Or do I actually want to have this really beautiful, exceptional marriage that I didn't see modeled to me, that I'd love to model to our kids and I'd love to just be part of? Well, then I'm going to have to let that go because I won't get to have an exceptional marriage if I'm telling myself that I am the one that I can always count on, because I know that I can count on my husband too, but I have to give him the opportunity for me
Yeah.
to be able to count on him and be really transparent about it. And then just like let my guard down a little bit. And I didn't even realize that I still had some of that until becoming a mom, where I was like, what is this need to like create things and like do this right now? Is like, gosh, I built this business to soak up this season. Why am I not
Yeah.
willing to take it? You know?
Yes. Your answer of just like feeling safe and secure is like, seems like such a valid reason. What I'm thinking when you ask me that, like the rush of putting something out creatively that is impactful. Like when I post a podcast, like that's it. Like I think without it, I would feel just like not motivated and not lit up. But that's such a stupid thing to like be holding on. Your rush of putting out something creatively is like going to bring down your marriage. Like I'm just saying the things, like that's what I'm thinking when you're saying it. Like you're like, what are you getting? You're getting something. I get to create it. I like get to create and I enjoy it and it lights me up. And I feel like I wouldn't be lit up if I just stopped doing it. But at what cost? Like it's
Well, and then it's like you go to a deeper layer, right? Where like then you go to this layer of like, okay, well, what am I getting from doing something that I'm lit up by and putting this out into the world? Like, what type of validation am I getting? Who am I getting it from? What am I making that mean about who I am, my worthiness? Like, it goes down to these like core things. You just keep
totally.
asking layers and layers deeper.
Yes.
And then you see something that you're like, oh, it's because my parents got divorced and I didn't see my dad. But like, it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
That's why, it's
Yes.
so interesting. And like,
That-
to be honest, I'll actually give like a real example that could be helpful for the audience is one of my girlfriends asked me like, Kacia, like, what is one of your triggers? Like, what's something that bugs you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel like I don't really have any triggers. And she's like, what's something that annoys you? I was like, inauthenticity. It really annoys me. And she, why does it annoy you? I was like, because it's just wrong. Like, I just feel like I'm the same person that I am on a podcast as I am in person. And like, she's like, okay, so, but why does that bother you? I'm like, well, because I just don't feel like I trust that person then. And she's like, ooh, interesting. So what does it mean if you can't trust someone? I was like, well, I just feel like they're not predictable. Like, I don't know that I could count on them. She's like, okay, so when in your life have you not been able to count on someone? I'm like, oh, we're going to childhood wounds here, right? Like it all stems back to that. And it's beautiful. And by the way, I've also dropped a lot of random swear words on your podcast. So hopefully that's
No, it's
fine. I
fine.
figure with you.
It's authentic.
Bleep it
Like
out.
it's, that's what I want. Don't say, now I
Yeah.
can't think of any of the words. You know, when you're talking to someone and it's just, they're saying narrative is coming to mind, like the narrative that, and I'm like, you're just saying the word, and to be honest with you, I want to talk to you about this. I know you have a mastermind, a podcast mastermind. Obviously I could benefit from that because my show does not have near the downloads that you do. But when I hear mastermind, I picture the women saying the words. And like you said, not come through this with me. I'm here and look at me and saying the words and just it not feeling real. And it turns me off too. So I need to get in there and be like, why does it need to be real? Like you're not being real. So I have the same thing. I have the same trigger.
Yeah.
That's why you hit and connect because you're just real. And it's so obvious when someone isn't.
It's so interesting because like whenever I notice that things bug me or it's not being represented the way I think it should, I'm like, okay, well, how can I be different? Where like for example, like I don't hide likes on posts because vanity metrics don't matter. There are things of mine that will get 5,000 likes. There are things that will get 25 likes. There are things that like, I mean, it's all over the freaking place because like it's an algorithm. Like who freaking cares? Like it's more about like the content that you're excited about to put out in the world. But I do see people that like, it doesn't add up. And that just creates like mistrust where I'm like, okay, wait, you have like 250,000 followers and you have one like on this post from like your grandma, like, or from a bot. It's like, yeah, I get what you're saying in terms of like, that's the world that we live in. And I've noticed it a lot because we have jumped really heavily into the real estate space where I noticed there are people that like sell Airbnb courses that do not own Airbnbs. Or like I was telling my husband, Tina, I was like, before I decided to create this podcast mastermind that I have, I was noticing there were a lot of people that were talking about like how to grow podcasts. And I'm like, this person's been podcasting for 6 months. Like, and they're like, what? They don't know how to grow a show. They literally just started. I'm like, but they're like teaching, like, this is how you're going to do it. I'm like, you don't have enough reps in the game. Like you haven't been around long enough.
You were just born.
Yeah, you're a toddler. No, but like, it's like, we're business coaches that their business is only business coaching, but they've never built a business outside of business coaching. I'm like, but like, that doesn't actually make sense. But that's unfortunately the world that we live in, which is why conversations and long form content like this podcast, and obviously people listening in love podcasts because it's like, you can feel like it's more real. Like you can't fake authenticity on a podcast. Like you can tell if someone's talking out their ass, right? But on Instagram, someone can put like a filter on it or like a trending audio, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, and so I think like I'm always paying attention to things that bother me, and I'm like, okay, that bugs me. Instead of getting myself heated about it, I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna be an example of like, I'm just not worried about vanity metrics. I don't care. I'm not going to delete something if it doesn't get traction. I'm like, well, okay, whatever, move on to the next one. It just doesn't matter to me because I'm like, do I think at the end of my TBD amount of days here, I'm going to be like, oh, I had 50,000 followers on Instagram and 12 million downloads on my podcast. So like, I did life right. It's like, no, I'm going to care that I made memories and that I was like, that I liked the person that I was when I'm by myself. And then I was like, I showed up and did the things that I wanted to do. And it's like, none of this stuff is gonna matter at the end. So like, if we think about it with the end in mind, who gives an F about if your post gets, I'm going to be honest about this because this has been something that a girlfriend of mine was telling me. She's like, I feel like I'm not as consistent on social media and I need to do this to grow my business. And everyone's probably thinking X, Y, Z. And I was like, girlfriend, love you, but can I be real with you? It's pretty narcissistic for you to think that everybody is thinking about you because everybody is worried about what everyone else thinks about them. But like, can you even remember one post that you saw on Instagram? If you scrolled this morning, you probably can't remember anything because there's so much stimulus. I could go on this for an hour, but I mean, no,
exactly. Well, I will tell you what, it's not vanity. I mean, it feels great to get to put something out that like goes viral. Obviously that feels great. For me, trying to book guests, and I've been trying to book like bigger guests every time. Send us how many downloads. And I'm like, can I just say, I'm like, I won't let you down. I'm always just like, just tell her I won't let her down. I don't want to like, they want the stats. And then if I finally DM, like some of the Real Housewives, I've had 5 of them. They don't see their DMs when I will work for like a year trying. And then I finally get into their inbox, and it's like, the first thing they're going to do is click on my profile. And if I have 12 followers, it's like, why? This is a waste of my time. So it's like, I need mine to be valuable to you to come on. And so that's why I want like, but then it's like, they're going to look at that other girl and she's just cheating. So it's like, why do I could be like, I could literally be like 12 million downloads. Like, I could just lie because other people lie, but I don't do that. And then I'm like, I don't know. I have to check with my producer about the downloads. I will not let you down. I'm like, why did they want to see the stats? But if people are inflating the stats, it's like, they don't even mean anything anyway. Cause that girl could be like, I have 2 million, but it's bullshit.
It's interesting because like sometimes we also like, it's worth even unpacking that of sometimes we tell ourselves like, if I get these certain people on, these guests on, that it's going to be more valuable. But I've had guests on my show that like don't have followings on social media that are some of the best episodes ever because they just add so much value.
You're
so
right.
like I've even just I'm like, I just want to have cool people on my show that I love. Like, and over the years, it's like, yes, now I could say like, oh, I want to get this person on and they can come pitch me because of Empower Her's audience. And like, that's whatever. But it's like, I'm still not going to have you on if you have 2 million followers on Instagram. If I don't think you're going to be fun to talk to and add value to my audience, I don't care. That doesn't
look at your numbers. You have that mindset and you have that many downloads. So it's like, yeah. And you're so right. When I've had like my bigger guests, they will share it. And I'm like, okay, nothing, crickets. So it doesn't, you're right. It's not about that. And it's about putting out the content, but like, again, because soccer didn't work out, this has to be, and I think too, to show my husband, this is a thing. It has to be charting. Like I can't, it has to be the biggest thing in order to justify doing this while I'm a mom.
I wonder if you actually did ask him about that. Like you being happy and lit up and excited. I bet you like you might accidentally be projecting like what you think he's going to think is valuable. Right. We're like, I've said to my husband where I'm like, oh, I could do this and it would make X amount of dollars and like, whatever. And he's like, Kacia, like, you know, like you got to do the stuff that like lights you up anyways. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. But like, I could do this or I could do this. He's like, never pick it based off that. He's like, I just want you to be excited about what you're doing. Right. And what turns out is whatever you're excited about what you're doing, the money follows that. The downloads come, the insert, whatever you're looking for comes. But if you're not putting yourself in a position to be lit up, then what's it all for? Like, oh, get X amount of downloads on the podcast, but then feel like you don't like the person that you are when you're by yourself. Is that really success? True. And I heard on my show, her name was Patrice Washington. She said, I don't want to be a public success and a private failure. And I was like, ooh, that hits, right?
Yes. I think just
it's all perspective.
When you create something, you just want to see it grow and be noticed and recognized. And I just, that's what it is. It's like, and it has to be, in order to justify being a mom and doing this, it has to be very important. As ridiculous as that sounds. That's where my, like, he's like, what, your little podcast? I'm like, it's in the top 1%. He's like everyone has a podcast. I'm like, no, like I have to justify. No, I'm not. It's like, I think he just, I don't know. I keep going back to him. It's like how I want him to see what I'm doing so that it is justified that I'm doing this as a mom. We're talking shit about people and judging people. Now we'll go into how you can feel better about people. I wanted you to share the 2 assumptions that you live by when you think about other people. Cause I thought that was such like, you don't really get triggered and frustrated because you think these 2 things.
I think like the core thing is I truly do believe that people are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to actually think that about everyone, like you can't assume that they have the same tools in their toolbox or the same experience or perspective that you have, but you're like, that has given me so much better relationships with people in my family where I'm like, why don't I just assume that everybody is going through life in general, in particular, the people that I know the best, doing the absolute best that they can with the tools that they have. And we might not have the same tools. And for people listening into a podcast like this, it's like you're wanting to connect and you're wanting to grow and evolve. But like often we want to take the finger up, point it at other people and say like, you don't do this, you don't know about this, or like, you're not growing at the rate that I'm growing. It's like, flip finger, point it back around at yourself and say, what can I own here? Because I also am assuming that I own something in this, like through judgment or through whatever it is. It's like, I just don't want to feel that way towards people. So like, I literally am like always trying to think like everybody's doing the best that they can, including the random person that like cuts me off. And I'm like, I'll give myself grace when I'm like, I'm so sorry I cut you off because I was doing X, Y, Z, like whatever, right? But if someone else does it, I'm like, Brad, you jackass, right? Or whatever. But it's like, no,
Yeah.
we have to give other people the same grace that we also have to give to ourselves too, you know?
Yes. And the other thing, like everybody's going through something that you don't know about.
It's like, number one, not everybody's talking about the hard things. And sometimes people are talking about the hard things in a way that like, it's not relatable to you right now, but it's like, gosh, like everybody has something going on behind closed doors. Like nobody has it all together. So it's like, if we have the compassion for people that it's like, you don't know what someone's struggling with. So they're projecting like people, it's the whole concept of like hurt people, right?
Yes.
Or like when I
Yes.
think someone that reacts bigger than what the issue is,
Yeah.
that always tells me, ooh, they've got something going on. Right. Where I'm like, ooh, that person's got like people that get really frustrated with like customer service representatives or like waitresses or whatever. I'm like, ooh, like that guy's got something going on, like
Yeah.
behind closed doors. No, because happy people just don't react that way. One time I had a reel go viral that got like millions of views. And it was my husband and I where like before they said you may kiss the bride, I like went in to kiss him because his vows were so good. And I was like, oh shoot. And I pulled back and the comment section went crazy. I mean, this is like, it got, I don't even know how many millions of views that it got, but there were people commenting like, she's marrying him for his money and like all this weird stuff. And then people would like, her voice sounds like so raspy, like a cool radio host. Her voice sounds like she smokes a pack a day. Like all these random things. I was like, wait, what?
Yes.
What? Like, you have no idea. Like people, I was like, who would comment that on a wedding video? That's so weird.
Someone that has
But
something going
whatever.
on themselves, because you would never
Blessed
have the
release,
thought.
like I don't care. Like, it is what it
100%.
is. It's just all just part of the game. And it's always asking yourself, what problem do I want most? Do I want the problem of navigating with some random, trolls on the internet? Or do I want the problem of having this discomfort in me, knowing that I want to put things out into the world that can help people? I'll
Yeah.
navigate that problem of dealing with feedback, then I'd rather navigate this like suffocating feeling of knowing that there's more for me and holding it back because I'm scared of what people think.
We're just so self-aware and just grounded, and it's beautiful to watch. Let's end it with anyone that is an entrepreneur balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship. How are you striving to find that balance? I guess you kind of answered it. Like you said Mondays, but now
Yeah.
Fridays you don't work. Someone that's struggling to find the balance of it all. Like, what do you say to that mom?
I think just go back to like the quality rather than the quantity. Cause sometimes in that season, like even right now, we have been like focusing on like a bedtime routine and stuff with our son. And it's like my husband and I are not going on date nights like we used to, like at night, but every morning we block off a time where we go on like a family walk. And that's our uninterrupted time that we get every single morning. And right now we have to start it at 6:45 because that's what allows for our schedule. So it's like looking and finding those like little pockets where you can actually practice what you preach of like the things that you say matter to you most. Like you got to figure out how to get those on your calendar, but also having grace and compassion that like, especially as a new mom, it's like days go differently than what you planned. So it's like having the vision, but also not so tightly gripping on to the exact details of how it's going to go. Like, that workouts matter to you. Like, okay, let's figure out how to prioritize getting a couple of those on your calendar. If things change, what's your backup plan? So you can pivot to like, maybe you can't get that 6 a.m. workout in. Like, I can't do workouts right now early in the morning because I wake up with our son and he wakes up between 5 and 6 a.m. So it's like, I can't plan on the predictability of that with the pumping the boobs and all the milk and all the stuff that's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I can't set myself up to feel like I'm failing. So how can you be on your own team, find those like tiny things that are actually important to you, and then figure out like, what is like one way that I could get that in? For me, I know I need quality time with my husband, but like sometimes by the end of the night when we're doing all these things that we're doing with 2 businesses and juggling this, like 8 p.m. is not the fire energy that I love, but it's like that morning walk where we buy our like overpriced lattes that Dave Ramsey would be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, Dave Ramsey, this gives me, this feeds and fuels my soul. I need this. But like, whatever it is, it's like find those pockets and give yourself grace for the season that you're in and know that the season isn't for forever.
It's beautiful. And just if anybody wants more from you, share all the things, 2 podcasts, your Instagram, everywhere people can find you.
Yeah. You can come find my show. It's called Empower Her. Every Monday and Thursday, I have the episodes. If you're interested in real estate investing, my husband Cena and I started a podcast called Get Investing, GHET. Our last name's Ghetmiri. So you can find me over on Instagram at Kacia Ghetmiri. That's all the things.
That is all the things. And a 5-month-old son thrown in. And she coaches a podcast mastermind. It's not all the things. Empower Her is absolute goals. I just hope people tell you that, like, as a podcaster and knowing how much goes into it, you should be so proud of what you have. And the recognition that it gets is so deserved. And I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much, Erin. I appreciate you, girl.